Ever feel like wrestling with code? Like you could really use a coding partner in crime.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling.
Well, today we're going deep on AI coding assistants. Specifically, Roo Code and Cline.
Two of the big names in the game right now.
Exactly. So we got to ask, in this crazy world of software development, how do these tools really stack up? And what does that mean for you, the person who wants to stay ahead of the curve?
Right, it's not just about AI hype, it's about what actually works, what can make a real difference in your workflow.
So our mission today is to really get under the hood of Roo Code and Cline. Both of them are built to work right inside VS Code, giving you that AI boost where you need it most.
And that's where a lot of people are coding these days, so it makes sense to have the tools right there.
Totally. Now, to do this deep dive, we've gone through marketplace listings, direct comparisons, even user discussions, trying to get the full picture.
So we can bring you the key takeaways. What are the differences? Where do they overlap? What do you need to know?
Exactly. Now, before we jump in, it's important to note that Roo Code actually started as a fork of Cline.
So they have some shared DNA for sure.
Yeah, but they've both evolved in their own ways. But the core idea is the same. They both want to bring AI right into your coding environment. Imagine having an intelligent partner that can help you generate code, squash those pesky bugs, automate some of the more tedious stuff.
It's like having that extra pair of hands, or maybe even that extra brain, helping you out.
That's a great way to put it. The goal is to help developers be more productive, do more, do it better, do it faster.
Streamline the whole process, right? Let the AI handle some of the groundwork so you can focus on the higher level stuff, the problem solving, the creative parts of coding.
Exactly. So, ever get stuck on a problem or wish you had someone to brainstorm with? That's the kind of potential these tools offer. And knowing the little but important differences between them, that could give you a real edge.
It's those nuances that can really change how you use these tools, how you approach your work.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. First up, what are the core things these AI assistants can actually do?
Well, both Roo Code and Cline, they offer what we might call autonomous coding. Now, this isn't just about suggesting the next word or line.
It's more than just autocomplete, right?
Much more. We're talking about reading and writing blocks of code, executing commands in your terminal, interacting with your whole development environment, all based on your instructions in plain English.
Whoa, hold on. So I could literally say, write a function that grabs data from this website and displays it, and it could just do it.
That's the goal. Obviously, the more complex the task, the clearer you got to be with your instructions. But yeah, they're designed to bridge that gap between how we think about problems and how computers need that information.
Okay, now that is powerful. What else do they have in common?
Another big similarity is their flexibility when it comes to the AI models themselves. Both Roo Code and Cline, they're built to work with a bunch of different models through OpenAI-compatible APIs. And really importantly, through platforms like OpenRouter.
Okay, backing up a sec. Why is that important?
Because it means you're not stuck with just one AI. You've got options like Claude, GPT, Gemini, even some open source models like DeepSeek.
Ah, so if one model is better at, say, writing documentation, I can use that one for that task.
Exactly. You can pick the best tool for the job, so to speak. And it means you can manage your budget better, too. Different models have different costs.
Smart. And the AI world is changing so fast, this keeps these tools relevant.
It's future-proofing them, in a way. You can adapt as new, better models come out.
I like that. Okay, so how do these assistants actually fit into, my everyday coding? What's it like using them?
Well, they're both VS Code extensions, which is great because a lot of devs are already using VS Code.
Yeah, it's kind of become the standard, hasn't it?
It has. And they both give you this nice chat window right inside VS Code, so you don't have to jump between different apps. Everything's right there.
Keeps you in the flow, I guess. Focus is key when you're coding.
Absolutely. No distractions.
Okay, so those are the big similarities. Now let's get to the good stuff. What makes Roo Code stand out? What are its unique tricks?
Well, Roo Code is all about giving you, the user, a lot of control, a lot of customization, more so than Cline.
Like, what kind of control are we talking about?
Well, for example, it gives you very fine-grained control over things like rate limiting. How often it talks to the AI, how long it waits before applying an edit, even how it matches code when making changes.
Wow, that's pretty specific.
It is. It also lets you adjust the quality of screenshots when it's working with websites.
That's actually really useful. High-res screenshots can eat up a lot of tokens, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it lets you tweak the timeout settings for the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, which is basically how it manages the back and forth with the AI.
Okay, so it's really letting you fine-tune things. Is that a good thing? Or could it be overwhelming?
It depends. For some people who really want to get under the hood and understand every little detail, this is amazing.
Yeah, for those who like to tinker, right.
Exactly. You can really tailor the AI's behavior to your exact preferences.
Okay, interesting. What else makes Roo Code unique?
Well, there's the mode system. Now, Cline has modes too, but Roo Code is much more flexible. It's got these default modes like code, architect, ask. Pretty self-explanatory, right?
Yeah, it gives you a general sense of what they do.
Right. But the cool thing with Roo Code is you can create completely custom prompts for each mode. You can pick specific tools, even which AI model you want to use for each mode.
So I could create a documentation mode that uses, say, a model that's known for writing really clear documentation.
Exactly. And you could even build in specific prompts just for that.
Wow, that's getting really task-specific.
It is. It can be super powerful once you get it set up the way you like.
That makes sense. Anything else that Roo Code does differently?
Yeah, little things.
Yeah.
Like it has optional sound effects when it finishes a task. Some people find that helpful, to know things are happening.
I could see that. It's like that little ding when your email arrives.
Exactly. And it uses slash commands in the chat. So instead of clicking through menus, you can just type like /ask or /code to change modes.
Ah, that's kind of neat. Efficient.
It is. And it has more detailed settings for browser interactions. We touched on that. And it gives you finer control over which actions the AI can approve automatically.
Okay, so lots of knobs to tweak, lots of options to explore.
For sure. And it's got a few other cool features like this new task thing, which can be great for breaking down complex projects into bite-sized pieces for the AI.
Like a to-do list for the AI.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
And it has quick actions you can access from the VS Code context menu. Like, explain this code, improve this, fix this. Just right-click and go.
That's handy.
It also works with the Glomma API. Has better buttons for refining your prompts, lets you control how terminal output looks, set the language you want to use, even include git commit messages and responses.
Okay, so we're talking about a really feature-rich tool here.
Definitely. A lot to explore with Roo Code.
All right, so that's Roo Code. Now, switching gears, what about Cline? What does it bring to the table?
Cline's got a different approach. It uses this plan act system for its modes.
So the AI helps you plan out the task first.
Exactly. You figure out the steps, then it goes and does them. It automatically switches between those phases.
So a more guided process?
Yeah, you could say that. Now, unlike Roo Code, Cline doesn't let you create fully custom modes.
Okay, so it's a bit less freeform.
In that sense, yes. Now, when it comes to user interaction, Cline offers system notifications rather than sounds.
Okay, so more visual feedback.
Right. And for giving the AI context, it's got this neat thing where you can use @otter followed by keywords like URL, problems, file, folder. That way you can quickly include that specific information in your request.
Ah, so instead of having to copy-paste the whole URL, I can just say @URL and it knows what I'm talking about.
Exactly. It's really efficient. It also has checkpoints, so you can save different versions of your code. And it's very good at interacting with web pages. It can click buttons, type text, take screenshots.
Right.
Especially when using models like Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which is multimodal.
Multimodal, meaning it can understand different kinds of data, not just text.
Exactly. Images, audio, that kind of thing.
Oh, Dad. Okay, so what about controlling which files the AI can access? Security is a big deal.
Oh, for sure. Client uses a .clinor file. Similar to how you'd use a .qtignor file. You just list the patterns for any files you want to keep private.
So the AI just can't touch those.
Exactly. Keeps things secure and simple.
I like that. Anything else that's really unique to Cline?
Well, it's got a really tight integration with VS Code at a deeper level. It actually requires VS Code version 1.93 or higher for its shell integration to work properly.
Okay, so you got to be up to date.
Yeah. And it does some pretty detailed analysis of your project structure. It uses something called abstract syntax tree parsing, or AST.
Sounds technical. What does that actually do?
So instead of just reading your code like a text document, it's actually understanding the structure, the relationships between different parts of the code.
Ah, so it's not just looking at words, it's understanding the grammar of the code, in a way.
Exactly. Which means it can give you smarter suggestions, help you refactor more effectively, that kind of thing.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's talk about what it's actually like to use these tools. How does the experience differ between Roo Code and Cline?
Well, because Roo Code gives you so many customization options, it can feel a bit more complex at first.
Like, too many choices.
For some people, maybe. The settings in the mode selector, they can take some getting used to.
A bit of a learning curve.
Yeah. But once you get it set up the way you like it, it can be really powerful. You've got it fine-tuned for how you work.
So maybe a bit more investment up front, but a more personalized experience down the line.
That's a good way to put it. Cline, on the other hand, it's got simpler settings, a more straightforward interface. It's very much focused on that plan act workflow.
So a more guided approach.
Yeah. And for some people, that's going to be a lot easier to just jump in and start using.
It's that classic trade-off, isn't it? Flexibility versus ease of use.
It really is.
Yeah.
And there's no right or wrong answer. It depends on your personality, your workflow, your specific needs.
Absolutely. Okay, now let's talk about the elephant in the room, cost. How do these tools compare on the money side?
Yeah, that's a big one. Both Roo Code and Cline, they rely on the pricing models of the underlying AI, which is usually based on tokens, how much you use the AI.
Right, and those costs can add up quickly.
They can. We've seen some users say they were spending like $50 a day with Cline, which is not nothing.
Yeah, that's a real consideration.
It is. You got to be mindful of which models you're using, how much you're relying on them. Interestingly, Roo Code actually has built-in cost tracking.
Oh, so you can keep an eye on your spending.
Exactly. See how much those API calls are costing you. Help you make more informed decisions.
That's a nice feature. So it's not just about the tool itself, it's about how you use it.
For sure. Now, what are users saying about these tools? What's the general feedback?
Yeah, let's get some real-world perspectives.
Well, it's interesting. It's a bit of a mixed bag, actually. Some people love Roo Code. Some people prefer Cline. Some have switched from one to the other.
No clear winner?
Not really. Some people have moved from Roo Code to Cline because they found the interface frustrating. Like, there were some issues with Gemini API keys not showing up right.
That's always annoying.
Yeah. But then others have gone from Cline to Roo Code because they ran into other problems.
So it really depends on the individual experience.
It does. The overall sense I get is that Cline might be a bit more polished, especially in terms of that initial ease of use, but it might have fewer features compared to Roo Code.
So maybe Cline's a bit simpler to get started with, but Roo Code has more depth.
That's a good way to summarize it. Some people have specifically said Cline settings are simpler, but you have less to tweak. And there's been some talk about Cline having a lower rate of community contributions being accepted, which could mean it's a bit slower to get new features and fixes.
Interesting. So Roo Code might be more actively developed.
It seems that way, yeah.
Okay, so lots of different perspectives out there, which makes sense, right? These are complex tools.
Yeah, definitely. And everyone's got their own preferences, their own way of working.
Now let's do some bigger picture thinking here. I was thinking we could use some movie character analogies to help understand the different philosophies behind these tools.
Oh, I like that. Movie characters, let's do it.
So I'm picturing Roo Code as Batman. What do you think?
Batman, huh? Interesting. Why Batman?
Well, think about it. Batman, he's got that utility belt, right? With a gadget for every situation. Roo Code, with all its custom modes and crazy settings, kind of feels like that. All those specialized tools for different coding challenges.
I see where you're going with this. But just like Batman needs to know which tool to use and when, the Roo Code user needs to be able to configure all those options.
Exactly. It's powerful, but it requires that knowledge, that willingness to tinker.
It's that hands-on approach.
So if Roo Code is Batman, who's Cline?
Ooh, good question. Who would Cline be in this movie universe?
I'm thinking Captain Kirk from Star Trek.
Captain Kirk. Now that's a good one. Tell me why.
So Kirk, he's got this standard set of procedures, right? He relies on his crew, on the ship's systems to get things done. And Cline, with its plan act system, it kind of feels like that. It's more structured, more guided. You tell it what you want, and it figures out the steps.
Yeah, I can see that. Kirk trusts in the processes of Starfleet.
Yeah.
Cline trusts in its algorithms and its workflow.
Exactly. So for our listener, the big takeaway here is this. Roo Code is Batman, super adaptable, tons of tools, but you gotta know how to use them. Cline is Captain Kirk, more structured, more streamlined, but maybe less flexible in certain situations.
It's a trade-off. Do you want deep customization, or do you want something more out of the box?
And there's no right or wrong answer. It's about what works for you.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, there's one really important thing we need to emphasize. No matter which tool you choose, you got to use it responsibly. These AI assistants are amazing, but they're not a replacement for your own brain.
Right. You can't just blindly trust the AI to do everything for you.
Exactly. You got to review the code it generates, understand what it's doing, make sure it's secure. These are assistants, not replacements.
They're co-pilots, not autopilots. You're still the one in control.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Okay, so looking ahead, based on everything we've talked about, Where do you see these AI coding assistants going in the future? What's your bold prediction?
Yeah, what's the crystal ball saying?
Hmm. Well, I think in the next few years, maybe 3 to 5, those clear lines between individual AI coding tools like Roo Code versus Cline, they're going to start to blur.
You think they'll merge together?
Not necessarily merge, but become less distinct. We'll see this kind of ambient intelligence layer woven into the whole development process.
So it won't just be about picking one tool, it'll be about the intelligence built into the whole environment.
Exactly. It'll be in your IDE, your version control, your CI/CD pipeline. It'll be everywhere.
So the question won't be a Roo Code or Online, it'll be which platform has the best AI.
That's my prediction. The focus will shift to the whole ecosystem.
That's a really interesting thought. Okay, so wrapping up, what are the key things we want our listener to take away from this deep dive?
The main difference between Roo Code and Cline is that focus on customization versus structure.
Batman versus Captain Kirk, right?
Exactly. Figure out which one suits you better. Think about your workflow, your projects, what you value most.
And if you can, try them both out. Or at least read the docs, check out the forums, get a feel for them.
It's worth the time to explore, and this brings up a big question for everyone. As AI becomes more and more integrated into coding, how will we, as programmers, need to adapt?
Yeah, what will our role become?
Will we be more like conductors, orchestrating these AI tools? Or will the very nature of coding change in ways we can't even imagine yet?
Those are some big questions to ponder.
They are. But that's what makes this such an exciting time to be a developer.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. We hope you learned something new about Roo Code and Cline. And be sure to join us next time as we continue to explore the ever-changing world of technology.
Always something new to discover.
That's for sure. Thanks for listening.